Hello, welcome back again. For this set we're looking at dagger work, particularly that where Marozzo is discussing how to use the dagger in a dueling situation, which in fairness is ludicrous, but it is the material that we've got to work for, and it does start to introduce the dagger nicely before we go on to look at it as a companion weapon for side sword. So far we've had a look at how we can use it much like a side sword, and that's kind of expected, we'd already know that. And we've had a look at a couple of basic attacks we can use in feints to line up our opponent's attacks. So let's have a look at those, because if we know what the tactics are, we need to have a defense against them. So the first one we were looking at was the thrust coming into the hand, and when they slip the hand up, you can turn it over and cut under the wrist. So obviously, we do know, if they come to stab our hand, I can raise it up out the way. I can slip, with the idea of them maybe stepping off and coming in. Seems very valid tactic, but we know that after that stab, I'm going to raise my hand up and they're just going to turn and get that cut across my wrist. So I don't want to take that as my approach. So what I'm going to do is, if the thrust comes in for the hand, the arm is now exposed temporarily whilst they're doing this low thrust. So rather than lifting up and out the way to come in with the strike, I'm going to go straight over the top for a strike of my own. And what I'm actually doing here is not so much aiming to actually cut the arm. I want to put the blade there, so if my opponent continues to push forward, they're actually skinning their own arm in the process of delivering that attack. So as the thrust comes in, I'm going to cut over the top, and then I'm going to lunge forward into a punta reversi into the ribs. Yeah, so that's going to be my defense against that. I'm not going to entertain it at all. Because I come from a more Dagger school a bit later on, I like to keep myself a bit safer. I'm likely to also step offline with that, so I'm moving away from that initial attack, allowing me to straighten up and put in my thrust at a slight angle. So that's one option we've got, and again, if the thrust is coming in on a high line, so if the thrust is, say, coming in from my head instead, I don't have that option. I can't reach over here because I'm going to be interacting with their dagger, but equally what that allows me to do is come underneath. Now, I'm not going to be able to get that thrust in that I had before, just simply because of the angles, that if I get my cut here and then thrust, I'm either going to catch here or the point's going to go up past the head. So what I'm going to do here instead is, again, just taking this a little bit more Dagger. As that comes in, I'm going to step offline to get my cut to the inside, and then turn it and get a cut across the stomach. So I'm going to still take that, so whether it comes high or low, my aim is going to be to cut the hand. Their hand comes low, I'm going to cut high over it. Their hand comes high, I'm going to cut low under it, and then hit them back. So that was the first thing we looked at. The second thing was if we had a punta reversi coming in for the outside of the head, and the idea is, what he's hoping for is, I'm going to move up here to parry, so that he can pass forward, pin my arm against my body, and the knife is going to come in over the top with a lovely stab there. So again, I need to have a ploy for this. So there's a few options I can take. The most side swordy one, I guess, would be when that comes, that punta reversi comes around the edge of my guard. I'm still going to parry, but what I'm going to do is move with it, much like I would do with a side sword where I parry across. Now, if he tries to seize the arm, he can still grab it, but he doesn't have that option of pinning it against the body. Yeah. So I'm in that case, now my option is to try and pin his arm against the body and come over for my stab. So I can try and reverse that with a movement. So again, so if we do that from the other side, just because I'm aware that that kind of maybe got lost a little bit. So as that thrust comes on the inside, I'm going to parry, but equally step across to the side. So this keeps me safe. Now, if he comes in to grab that, he can't pin it against my body. I've still got room to move, and potentially I can now pin, break the grip, and come over for a counter stab. So, what are my other options? Again, if that comes in, I can take things much easier, and I can still move out the way. That's a key principle. Don't be where the attack is coming in, and I'm going to cut into the wrist rather than the hand. So thrust comes in. I've now cut him and I've avoided being hit. So a couple of very simple ways of dealing with these. If a thrust is coming in, I'm going to cut for the arm. if it's coming more round the side, now whether that's a wide punta reversi as that setup, but equally if that was a reverso spolverato coming in from my neck, that same kind of parry setup still leaves that arm open to be pinned as it was before, so I'd still be looking to step offline, or I'd be looking to step and take that cut to the arm. So if it's coming in wide, on the outside, the white line, I'm going to be looking to cut the arm or to move right the way out of the way with my parry so I don't leave this arm trappable. Whereas if it comes in on the center line, I'm going to look instead to cut under or over the thrust so that I can stop the attack getting in and cut them at the same time. So that gives us our basic principles on how we're going to deal with thrusts and how we're going to deal with cuts. So really that just leaves us one more that I'm going to do next week, where we're going to kind of wrap everything up, tie it all together, and kind of finish off this work on Marozzo's dagger. So hopefully that's been useful, and we'll catch you next week.